Here's everything you need to know about Spirit Mountain. What's going on, Midwest skiers and riders? Matthew Zaransky with MidwestSkiers.com. We got an awesome episode for you today. We're going to be exploring Spirit Mountain, but before we do all of that, if you enjoy this type of video where we go through and do a whole guide and document the entire ski area, make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel. Not only that, but make sure you drop in the comments where you'd like to see us go next. We're building out our schedule, actually filming right now for this season and even into next year, and we do take all of your feedback into consideration. So if you have a skier that you'd love to see, drop it in the comments below. But let's dive into some basic info. All the footage that you're about to see on screen was filmed on January 30th of 2024. We said this for all of our videos that were from last year, but it was a really low tide year in both snowfall and for snowmaking temperatures for the Midwest. So if you see some brown, and you will in these videos, that is why. So their coverage actually was really good this day, all things considered. Location, Spirit Mountain is located in Duluth, Minnesota, which is about 2 hours north of the Twin Cities. Opening dates, they usually open for the season. That Thanksgiving weekend is kind of what they aim for, and then they are open till mid to late March. It really just depends on the weather, usually into the later parts of March though. Pricing, we were coming up with, at the time of filming this, $80 for an open to close ticket and $65 for children, and night tickets will run you $60, and I believe that starts at 3 o'clock. Now, buy online versus walking in and buying a counter ticket, it saves anywhere from a few to $10, so just make sure you buy those tickets online before you go for the day. Number of trails, they have 22 trails. They have 4 chairlifts, including 1 high speed. They also have 1 rope and 1 carpet, and then they also have a tubing carpet. Vertical rise, we always use Google Earth for this metric just to make sure it's as accurate as possible. And we were coming up with just over 560 feet, about 565 of vertical rise, which is really good for the Midwest. It's actually in the top tier. And you'll see that in these videos that Spirit Mountain has some really, really long, nice, especially intermediate and beginner runs. So we'll look at those. And before we dive into the videos, I want to talk about one more thing, and that is their chalet situation, as they actually have 2 different chalets, one at the top and one at the bottom. So the one at the top is called the Skyline Chalet, and that's located all the way up at the top. That's the original chalet that they opened with. And then there's also a Grand Avenue Chalet that's located at the very bottom. You can get tickets at both of them, and they both have restaurants and bars. Sometimes they are closed on different days of the week, but if you're on a weekday, just double check their website to make sure that they're going to be open. Now, they don't have rentals at the bottom, so if you're going for rentals, lessons, beginner terrain, you're going to want to go to the top chalet, so just something to note. I usually go to the top chalet just because, you know, that's where kind of everything is, and it's really easy to get to off of 35, so you just get off and basically the road is right there, so it's a little bit more logistically easier for me to get to coming from the Twin Cities, so I'm usually parked up at the top chalet. So we're actually going to get started in a weird little bit of a spot here. This is their beginner area right kind of on the other side of the chalet here. And this is their conveyor, the only conveyor that they have. So if you're going for lessons, this is most likely where you're going to get started. So it just has one really, really short, mellow pitched run that kind of just feeds right back to that chalet. So that's actually a nice situation for families because you can kind of watch it from that chalet up on the deck there. And it kind of runs, you know, perpendicular to the actual ski runs. Now, they do have a handle toe on the other side. It's kind of just as redundant. They don't usually run that unless they have to because the carpet is down, but that is there as well. Now, we're going to actually go down to the bottom here, and if you went to the bottom chalet, this is going to be the first lift that you're going to take up. This is the Spirit Express 2, and I'll explain the 2 right now. Actually, the Spirit Express, the original, number 1, if you will, was the first high-speed lift in the Midwest. It was actually installed in 1986. It was a rare Borvig Lightner high-speed quad, and it had these crazy carriers that had bubbles on it as well. Basically, one of the first bubbles in the Midwest, too. So it was a really cool chair. Then in 2011/12, Lightner Palma basically replaced both the upper and lower terminals and the carriers as well, but they kept the towers. So the towers are original. So those are part of the first install with the original high speed. But obviously the terminals and the carriers, and I'm sure the haul line by now has been completely replaced. So it's the second iteration of this lift, but it was basically in the exact same position. So just a little fun bit of knowledge as we're riding up. This chair is great for beginners and intermediates. It serves a ton of amazing beginner slash lower intermediate terrain, as you're going to see in just a second here, and it is long. Like I was mentioning earlier, they have over 550 vertical feet here, so it is a very, very long, nice runs for beginners, and the way that they're graded is absolutely great. The way the hill is laid out, everything on the left-hand side here and underneath us is beginner, and basically as you go lookers right, things are going to slowly, progressively get steeper and steeper until we kind of end up on that far right chair over there. So this upper section is a little bit mellower and then kind of dives back down onto the side, but this will take you all the way up to the top and you'll be able to access pretty much the entire area from up here with a little bit of skating possibly on the side. But we will run this one in and we'll take our first run. All right, so we're gonna get started with Sourdough Sam. I gotta just say right off the bat, these names, if I start laughing, it's because these names are kind of ridiculous. Sourdough Sam up here is this upper section that's a little bit more flat, and then we'll get to Timber Cruiser in just a little bit. I'm guessing Timber Cruiser got its name because it's kind of cut through the woods on the side over here. It's one of their newer runs, actually, that was cut. And this run is actually really great for intermediate skiers because it kind of narrows out and then dog legs back. And it doesn't have an super intimidating pitch, but it has these little pockets of trees, as you can see in front of me here, that you can cut through that are pretty cool. And then it dog legs and you get a really nice view of the bay and the harbor. Just a really nice intermediate run. This might be one of my favorite runs over in this section here. Now, there wasn't a lot of natural snow when we were obviously here for this trip because that's just kind of the way that things went. But when there is a lot of natural snow, sometimes these areas will be filled with little side hits and like kind of paths through the woods. So if you have kids and they like that kind of stuff, you'll be able to find some of these sections, especially as you get a little bit further down. They kind of cut through. They do mountain biking, so sometimes kids will kind of cut through the trails in the back there, so you'll see kind of paths cutting and weaving in between. But as you can see, this kind of trail is a nice, narrow, intermediate groomer, and then it kind of flattens out at the bottom here like all of these runs kind of semi-do, and it'll feed back in to kind of the main zone that you're going to pick back up on that Spirit Express 2. So we're going to run this one in, and then we're going to take a run down Juggler Joe. So same exact upper area here, Sourdough Sam. To the left of us is actually Powder Monkey. That would be the other technical run that's up here. So we're gonna run this one basically on skier's right-hand side. So instead of going all the way, we're just gonna cut and take the one just slightly to the left. This one's rated a green. They do have everything over here has a pretty relatively similar pitch. I think it's just the width of the trails, like the last one that we just ski, is a little bit narrower than some of these other ones, as you can see. So this one's going to be a little bit wider, and then when you get to like the 4-pipe run that we'll do in a couple of runs here, that one's just super wide. It's basically wide open. But as you can see, this one's a lot more wide, but has a similar pitch to it. And I mean, you just got to look, like whenever you ski Spirit, you always like look up and you're like, wow, this is pretty amazing to be able to ski this close to a lake and a river. You got the St. Louis River and Bay coming in, the harbor. You can see the lift bridge if you look off into the distance. The city of Duluth is right there. I mean, it is absolutely kind of magical in a weird way. And if you do night skiing, it's even cooler because the whole city of Duluth is lit up in the distance as well. So as you can see, it kind of follows that exact same trajectory as far as pitch goes. Really pretty mellow. It kind of has these some of these rolling areas where it'll get a little bit steeper, but then flatten out a little bit. And then it'll kind of dogleg a little bit to the left here. That'll hook us back up with that main run, which is 4-pipe. That kind of then circles down back to the Spirit Express 2. Now at the bottom here, this is the chalet once we round this corner, that kind of reddish, brownish building. That is the new chalet. So if you parked at the bottom, that's the building that you would get your tickets from, and then you get up the Spirit Express 2. We're gonna ride this one in, and then we're gonna do double jaw. Like our previous ones, we're gonna get started with sourdough Sam, have a bite of that sourdough bread, and then we're gonna go down to double jaw, which is the next run over. Kind of the same situation. It's gonna be a little bit narrower than something like 4-pipe. So if you're in the progress zone here, you would definitely start, obviously the beginner area that we highlighted at the very beginning, that's where you would really start. But then your next run would be the 4-pipe, which we'll ski in just a second here. And then I would say probably this run, or Juggler Joe. Those are going to be like the 3 beginner runs that you're gonna want to basically ski if you're a beginner, because then things start to get a little bit steeper as you go further down that lineup of runs. Then I would do Timber Cruiser is the next one, the one that we started with on this side, and then basically you can start going into the runs that we'll do a little bit later, which will have a little bit of a steeper head wall. So this one, as you can see, a little bit wider through here, a little bit more of a direct pitch line, so just slightly steeper, not much though, and then it'll kind of narrow out a little bit here. Again, looking at the bay the entire time, then the harbor, it's pretty amazing. And then instead of having a stronger dog leg that's going to kick you off to the left here, it's going to kind of just follow along with the 4-pipe run on our left here, and then it'll just hook up with that, and we're going to basically find ourselves right back down at the bottom of the Spirit Express. Now this haul double that you see on our left-hand side, it is still standing, but they do not operate it anymore, and it's actually, I think, in the process of being removed. They actually listed it for $1 a couple of years back, but you had to actually remove the entire lift. I don't think anybody took them up on that, but it might still be standing, it might not be standing by the time that you watch this video. All right, so this is going to be their one of their signature, especially beginner runs that kind of just runs right down the middle. We'll take that sourdough Sam path at the very top here, and then we're going to get kicked out to 4-pipe, which is that big wide run that you saw kind of when we were coming up the lift there. This is going to be basically the #1 run that everyone's going to start with when they go up the Spirit Express 2. It's just really, really wide open. You know, it's got pretty similar pitch to the other ones, but it just doesn't have that narrowness to it. And so you got a lot of room to work with, and it's a pretty mellow pitch. So, you know, making that step up here isn't super dramatic. So again, if you have beginner or intermediate, low intermediate especially, skiers, these runs that we just skied, the 3 or 4 of them here, are just absolutely amazing for them. They'll get a kick out of them. They're super long, as you can see here. This gives you a good gauge as to how long it is, because you can see all the way down to that chalet. And it's a pretty consistent and relatively mellow pitch. And that's something that we don't have a lot of in the Midwest. A lot of beginner runs in the Midwest are usually cut kind of into the terrain to go all the way and circle around areas, so they're not like a consistent pitch, or they're super flat. And this offers like a really nice in-between pitch that's going to be nice for beginners, not too intimidating, but it's long enough where people can actually get a feel like they're actually skiing, you know, that top to bottom run that everybody wants to ski. They want to go on that adventure, right? Well, Spirit's going to give you that if you're a beginner and lower intermediate skier. They definitely have great options for you. So we're going to run this one in, then we're going to actually start getting into the slightly steeper runs on this side. So this one we're going to run down, we're going to take sourdough again, but this time we're going to take Scissor Bill, which, fun fact, Nick, when he was actually editing this, actually noticed that the trail map sign is actually misspelled. I wonder if they'll fix it by the time this video gets out. And I would definitely recommend this as the next step up if you're looking to ski like a blue. Between this and then Timber Cruiser would be good choices as that next step after you kind of knock out the greens there. But you're going to see here, it's, you know, got this mellow pitch at the top. It does get a little bit steeper kind of at the break up here, and obviously a little bit narrower compared to something like 4-pipe. And you can see, though, it kind of links right back up with 4-pipe, so it's going to have a pretty similar feeling. It's just going to have these zones that kind of branch out and just get a little bit narrower. So a great choice if you're looking to kind of step up from those green runs. This is probably the first one, and then Timber Cruiser that you would want to take. And as you can see here, this one kind of dog legs off to the left, but then we're going to basically cut right back to the right and then get right back on that Spirit Express 2. Now at the bottom here, there is going to be a Y that you can either take the left-hand side that's going to feed you out to the pod of chairs that we will ski a little bit later, or you can take the right here, which will feed you under the chair. And you can actually, if you wanted to take a left there, you can take a left and go all the way around their maintenance building, which is to our left here, and go all the way around that maintenance building and hit the high-speed quad, but it gets pretty flat down there, so I would definitely take that cutoff that we just did to feed you back out to 4-pipe, because it's going to be a lot more lappable. So we're going to run this one in, we'll go back up to the top, and we'll take Bindle stiff next. Okay, so this time we're going to take the Powder Monkey sides. This is kind of the upper section of the left-hand side is the Powder Monkey trail technically here. And we're going to link this up with Bindle stiff. So as you're going to see when we get to the break up at the top by the chalet, there's going to be a slightly steeper head wall that's going to start to hit now. And these next 2 runs that we're going to do, I would say, are my favorite if you're looking for high-speed laps, because you can still make it back to the high-speed chair on these next 2 runs, but then after that, you basically are going to have to take the fixed grips on the other side of the ski hill. So if I go to a Spirit Mountain and I want to do some high-speed laps, these are usually the runs that you're going to find me on. So right here, you can see it's going to start to fall off, and then you're going to have some, medium pitch turns here. Nice and long, though. I enjoy that element of it. Now, one thing that you want to be aware of when you get towards the bottom of this run is that you're going to want to carry just a little bit of speed, because things do flatten out, and if you're trying to make it back to the high speed, you're going to need some speed towards the bottom in that what they call the downhill musher area. So, these last 2 turns here, you're probably going to want to start to widen out a little bit more, and then you're going to want to start to carry a little bit more speed, because again, you're going to have to go around the shop then here to link up with that high speed chair. So you don't need to carry tons of speed, obviously, in this zone, but just enough so that way you're not having to skate when you get down towards the bottom. So we're going to run this one in. You're going to see the chalet kind of come up in front of us here, and then that's where we'll pick up the high-speed quad. And then our next run that we're going to do, which is Skyhooker, that will be the last run that you can really access from the high speed. So let's run this one in, and then we'll go up and ski that one. So we're back at the top at Powder Monkey here. I mean, look at these views, though. It's absolutely amazing. The lift to our left, we did not get to ride. It is called the Summit Chair. This is a 1974 Hall Triple. It was actually one of the original chairs. It used to end, actually, where the chalet is, and they extended it from what I've heard. So I've actually never ridden that lift. It's really just a redundant lift, and we'll talk about it more at the end, but that lift's actually planned to get removed this off season, and there's going to be a new lift going in. So we'll talk all about that at the very end. Now we're going to be taking kind of an auxiliary little chute. They call it a chute here. It is called the Summit Chute, which is this little chute right here and beyond this chair, basically the furthest chair line. So it's just narrow. It's pretty much the same pitch. But this run is really fun to lap. Again, this is the last run that you're going to be able to ski while still being able to hit the high speed. So this is one of my favorite runs if you're looking for those high speed laps. It has just slightly more pitch than some of the other ones that we skied, but still easily lappable. And then basically when you get up to this zone up here, this is where you're going to want to carry some of that speed to then get you back to the high speed. And then of course right here is where if you take a left, you can take those other fixed grip chairs, which we'll ride in just a second after we get a look at their terrain parks. So we'll ride this one in just so you get a vibe of this access trail. And then we are going to go up to the Lone Oak Terrain Park, which is actually one of my favorites across the Midwest. So we're gonna ride up their one and only rope tow. This terrain park is awesome. It's right off the chalet up here, named Lone Oak for that one tree that's up there. But they do a great job with their features here. Spirit has really great parks. They have this park, which would be their jib park, but their big park is phenomenal. They have some of the biggest jumps and jump lines in the Midwest, and not only that, but they have some really awesome features over in that park as well. Unfortunately, it was down for a rebuild, but really nice rope tow park at the very top here. So at the top here at Powder Monkey, you can also see that they do put some jumps on the left-hand side of that rope, or left-hand skier side of where we're skiing now, and then left-hand if you're riding up on that jump as well. So you can access those jumps from the rope, which is really, really cool. So, you know, you can get some jibs in, get some jumps in. The park situation is actually phenomenal at Spirit Mountain. Now we're going to take a pretty similar approach to the run we did a couple of runs ago, where we took Skyhooker all the way down and went to the high speed, but this time we're actually going to take a left up at the brake, and we're going to take that in all the way down to the fixed grip area. So instead of taking that chute, we're going to take the entire run, the entire proper Skyhooker run, and then take that all the way across back to the Gandy chair. So this is another great run here, and as I mentioned just a second ago, this Summit chair is slated to be removed in the summer of 2025. So is the Gandy chair, because that's going to be replaced with a brand new fixed grip quad. We don't know the manufacturer just yet. They're in the process of looking over those bids, so we will probably know in the upcoming month or two, and we'll probably have to redo a video. So we'll cut under this, but that lift will be gone by the time basically next year. Now, one thing to note, the new Gandy lift will actually go deeper into the hill, further down the hill, so then people can more easily access it from different areas, including the park. So that will be replaced. But since it's here now, we're gonna ride the currently in place Gandy chair, which is a 1976 Hall triple. And like I just mentioned, this chair is slated to be replaced this upcoming summer for 2025. Now, this is the chair. I was there during a weekday, so they have one more chair to our right here, which is the big air chair. That one is a 1989 C-Tech. Unfortunately, they don't usually run that during the week because this chair can basically access all of the runs basically underneath us and all the way to the right. So that's kind of the new design of the new chair as well. That's why they're going to be moving the unloading and the loading station just slightly to make it just a little bit easier to access all of that terrain. So they just have to run basically those two chairs. It would be the high speed and then obviously the future Gandy lift as well, and you'll be able to basically access everything. So that'll be a great addition. Very excited about this. Now under us, this is Gandy Dancer. This is one of their, I would say, signature runs. All these runs over here are going to be a little bit steeper. Nothing super intense, but a little bit more pitch. So if I would say Spirit was lacking anything, it is probably really steep terrain. Everything is kind of in that like intermediate advanced level. They just don't have anything that's extremely steep, but it's still really fun terrain that I really do enjoy. So we're going to get started with the run that kind of comes off the back side of this chair here and wraps around. This is Bull Wacker to technically Blue Run Bull Wacker, I think is the full name, which is kind of crazy. But you know, it's got a nice pitch coming around, and again, that view, man, coming over the top is just absolutely crazy. So you can get some really nice high-speed turns. As you can see, they use this for their racing a lot. This one and the next one, they have the B-net up on the side. So these are some really fun runs to get some high-speed laps on in some of the steeper terrain at Spirit Mountain. So basically, you're going to find yourself, if you're an advanced skier, you're going to find yourself lapping these next three runs. These are going to be the runs for you. So we'll run this one in, and we're going to go up, and then we are going to do Gandy Dancer. So the next run we're going to do is basically just a direct fall line on this chair. It's going to be Gandy Dancer, so instead of coming back on the backside and around, we're just going to basically just take it straight down here. And like I said, this chair will be replaced. Now, this section here obviously has some steeper terrain. It's not super intense. I would probably label it on the higher end of intermediate, lower end of advanced. But it does have good vertical. I mean, even though it doesn't have that top section above the chalet, because technically this chair doesn't go up that far, it's still measuring in at about 440 vertical feet. So that's a lot for the Midwest. You know, definitely on the upper side, just this section on the upper side. So it's some really good lappable terrain over here that I really do enjoy. Next, we're gonna take kind of one of the last black diamond runs in this pod over here, and this is called Bear Claw, so it's kind of a pretty similar run that we just took, except it's gonna have just kind of like an offshoot off the side here that you'll kind of separate off from that run and then connect back up with it. So these 3 runs that we just skied are some of my favorite runs at Spirit Mountain. You know, obviously you're getting onto a fixed grip, so it's going to be a little bit slower than the high speed laps, but you also don't have that top flat section, so it's kind of nice in that regard that you're hitting pitch right away. So usually what I'll do is I'll do some cruisers over on the high speed and then find my way over here and lap this chair for a while, getting those kind of high speed or steeper turns in before calling it a day. So really fun little pod of skiing, honestly, over there. And then the last run before we get into the terrain parks over here is going to be Cinder Snapper. Now, because this is kind of cut all the way out and around, it's going to have a slightly steep kind of trajectory to it on the side here. So if you're an intermediate skier looking to kind of break into this pod of skiing, I would definitely get started with this run, then work your way to probably the other 3 would make sense. Now, above us here, this chairlift that you are seeing, this is the big air chair, the C-Tech that I said really doesn't operate during midweek, more of a weekend chair, redundancy for that terrain park side. But as you can see, kind of slopes back around and then meets back up with that Gandy chair. So this will be our last run for this POV because their big park was being closed to push out some new features. They still had some features available here. So you'll see, kind of get a vibe for what it's like. Their jump line is phenomenal. It's one of the best in the Midwest, and size-wise, it's definitely one of the biggest as well. They just have a lot of vertical to work with. Like I said, almost 440 feet of vertical. So this is a really like slope style park. So on our right-hand side, you can see they have smaller jumps, but on our left, that's where their big park is, where your bigger jumps and features are gonna be. That was closed, unfortunately, just because they were pushing out and making some new features in there. But man, they got some really, really nice, bigger terrain park features. I'm always amazed when I go there. It's like, man, this feels like an out west terrain park. It literally feels like you're out west at Breckenridge or something like that. They do a great job building out these features. So this one will kind of go all the way down and wrap around. Now, if the big air chair was open, that's pretty much what you would take to access this park, because it's just going to be more lappable since you don't have to go all the way down and catwalk around through what is called Duck Leg Shorty. Kind of an interesting name. But you would grab this chair right here, that C-Tech that we were talking about earlier. But since it's close, we're going to carry some speed at the bottom here and run this one all the way down in to that Gandy chair. Oh man, Spirit Mountain. But we did miss a couple of things, so let's talk about those really quickly. We missed some connector runs, I would call them. They're just kind of offshoots that kind of get you to and from different areas. That would include runs like Flume, Log Roller, and Big Air. That's kind of towards the terrain park side over there. We talked a lot about, during this video, about this off-season chairlift project. So the Gandy chair is going to be replaced, and it's going to be moved, the lower terminal is going to move slightly downhill. There's going to probably be some new trails cut that will access that then. And then both the Summit chair and the Gandy existing chair will then be removed. I don't think it's going to change a whole lot of how that area skis because they already have a fixed grip. I do think it's probably going to be a little bit smoother and a little bit faster with the new chair. And honestly, I just think it's going to be a nice addition given that the chair that they're currently using isn't, a 1976 Hall triple. Nothing wrong with an old Hall, but I think it's just going to be a nicer, smoother ride and more enjoyable for everybody. So it'll be an awesome welcomed addition. And I think the way that they'll cut those new runs, things are going to be a little bit easier to access that chairlift as well. So super excited about that improvement. I think so many people pass by Spirit because it's easy to, run right past and go to some of the other bigger ski areas up north. But Spirit, actually, I really enjoy. And every time I go there, I always remind myself that this ski area is only 2 hours away from the Twin Cities, and you're getting a lot more vertical, a lot more bang for your buck, especially if you're on a pass like the Indy Pass that it's included, and they have a lot of reciprocal deals with some of the local areas as well. I think it's a great value. You can get a lot of skiing in, and if you're a beginner or intermediate, some of the runs that they have off of that high speed are kind of unmatched. I mean, there's not many runs in the Midwest that have the length and the pitch that those runs have. So that alone, if you're fall into that category, it is certainly worth checking out. A couple things to note here. It does get cold up there with any of those northern ski areas, especially those on the lake there when the wind starts whipping. Just something to be mindful of. So just check those temperatures. If you're sensitive to that kind of stuff, just make sure you look at the forecast before you go. They do offer night skiing as well, which is awesome. I think it's a great ski area and obviously a great addition to the Duluth region. And not only that, but the Duluth is a great backdrop for this ski area as well. So once you're done skiing for the day, you can head into town and get a bite to eat or a beer at any of these countless number of great restaurants. And it's just really a nice kind of mini trip from the Twin Cities, you know, being only 2 hours away. I'm right up 35. It's just a great little getaway from kind of that. And it's also a great stop if you're making your way up to either Giants Ridge or Lutsen. You can throw it into that mix, and it's actually a really awesome place to kind of get some turns in and get a lot of laps in before heading up for the weekend. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe, and check out our playlist, which has all of the guides in there, so you can actually put that on and just sit back and enjoy Midwest skiing at its absolute finest. But until next time, I hope everybody has a great week. Pray for that snow or cold temperatures, and I'll see you out there.